Hello friends, here I am with next part of this story. I hope you all like the video and subscribe to my channel. So let's start the story with summary. Naruto is an orphan in Uzumaki. With the second shinobi war on the rise, Naruto will go to any lengths to protect the ones he loves. Main pairing Naruto x Kushina. Uzumaki. It was early in the morning and Uzumaki was already thriving with activity. The fishermen were bringing in the daily catch from early in the morning. The market was bustling with activity ranging from restaurateurs searching for the best goods, to simple housewives looking for ingredients to make lunch and dinner with. Though in a grandiose building centered in the village, the tension was high in the air. People were scrambling around to tend to their many duties at hand. While the village was still thriving, there was a war going on amongst the elemental nations. There had been for 2 years, and Uzumaki had not been idle. They were allied to Konoha and had to support them against both Iwagakure and Tsunagakure. Kirigakure and Kumagakure both had been silent in the past 2 years, and that's what worried Kenshin the most. Reading a disturbing report, his grip had tightened on the parchment containing the written report. His grip had crumpled the edges of the parchment. Kiri and Kumo both were silent no longer. Strengthen our borders and put us on high alert. Order any shinobi of Uzumaki back to Uzusho now, commanded Kenshin with a booming voice. The report he had just read informed him that both Kirigakure and Kumagakure were mobilizing their forces. A large portion of Konoha's forces are deployed along their western front. Uzumaki herself had around 500 experienced ninja on her island still. The second shinobi war had begun 2 years ago. They've been assisting Konoha by sending them some of their shinobi as reinforcements to help combat the enemy. A considerable amount of their forces had perished as well. A single Uzumaki could very well change the tide of the battle if they were experienced enough. Though that acted as a double-edged sword, they had also been prioritized as targets, leading to the downfall in many proud Uzumaki shinobi. The cause of the war was the economic disparity going through the 5 great nations. It had become an increasingly large problem between them. Many nations, including the Great Five, had begun forming factions amongst themselves. All of them had begun building up their shinobi forces after their heavy losses after the first shinobi war to try to regain their strength. As many of the council members had begun to do their duties, Kenshin let out a deep breath. Konoha had long been Uzumaki ally, though their foolishness had started this war. The months before now Konoha had started a war with Kakeru village, a small nation bordering the land of fire. Whether it was overland disputes or resources, it no longer mattered. Hiruzen Sarutobi and some other Konoha ninja had launched a surprise attack that swiftly ended the war with a ceasefire. After a couple of weeks, another smaller nation, Takikakure, attacked Kakura village, completely decimating the already weakened nation. Other nations had viewed this as Konoha becoming more imperialist. They too had decided to expand their borders, to take more land and resources as their own. Iwagakure, Tsunagakure along with Konoha herself had already mobilized their forces long ago, and had many conflicts had been going on along each other's borders. Though they had mainly been fighting in Imegakure, unfortunately, there was a considerable amount of crossfire with the civilians living there. While their whirlpools along with their finjutsu had become a great tool to prevent other nations from attacking them out of fear, their whirlpools had kept countless invaders out of their village for years. Though he just had a gut feeling that something unfortunate was going to happen. Taking out some parchment, he quickly wrote orders onto it. Sealing the scroll, he handed it to a nearby chunin. "Take this to Mayumi Uzumaki, you should find her in training ground 6. Ordered Kenshin with a firm tone while staring at the young man. "Yes, Uzaki-sama," exclaimed the chunin while giving a salute to Kenshin. After that, he was gone in a shunshin. Kenshin let out a deep breath. He couldn't shake off the feeling that something unfortunate would befall his village soon. 30 minutes before training ground 6, dashing to the right to dodge a hail of shuriken, Naruto's breathing was even, already on the move as to not let his adversary corner him. He just had to keep leading her on to the rendezvous with his team. Dashing through the forest for a couple of minutes, he spun on his heel and threw 2 kunai with explosive tags attached to them. A figure blurred away from the explosions at an impressive speed. Naruto dashed away with equal speed away towards his teammates. After a couple of minutes, Naruto found his teammates crouched behind a tree. "She's coming," voiced Naruto calmly to Kid and Hisana. The 3 of them were crouched in a circle, taking cover behind one of the many trees in the area. All 3 of them had grown considerably within the last 3 years, physically and mentally. While Naruto was the strongest and tallest out of the three, he still retained his lean build fit for a shinobi while standing at around 5'9" inches, extremely tall for an individual his age. Ken was just around 5'7" inches, and Hisana followed them up at around 5'5" inches. While Naruto was a prodigy, Ken and Hisana weren't very far behind him in some aspects. Sure, his taijutsu and ninjutsu skills were excellent. Yet, Ken's strategy had won them many engagements, and gotten them out of a pinch many times. Hisana's aerial ninjutsu had saved both of them when they got injured. Kushina and her would probably get along, he thought. Their medical skills were practically on par. Early on in the training initiative, they discovered that Naruto and Hisana were both sensor-type shinobi. Both of them were able to sense individuals' chakra signature from great distances. Though Naruto was able to differentiate who they were if he had encountered them before, he was even able to completely conceal his chakra signature from other sensors. That didn't mean Hisana was completely useless by any means. Unlike Naruto, she was able to tell if the individual in question was lying by fluctuations in their chakra. Naruto's eyes widened when a rain of shuriken and kunai came from one of the many trees in the forest around them. They were coming for both Hisana and Ken. The three of them scattered to dodge the hail of weapons. She's faster than usual, was the three young shinobi's consecutive thought. Naruto rushed at Mayumi at full speed, intent on taking her on and buying time for his team to execute their plan. Delivering a quick punch towards her face, it was deflected and she swung back at him in retaliation. Taking a quick step backward, he dodged the jab and drew a kunai and went in for a slash across her chest. Mayumi quickly drew her katana to guard herself against the oncoming kunai. Naruto's kunai had impacted her katana as he had planned. Kicking her blade and using the force of it, he launched himself into the air just behind her. Mayumi wasn't idle by any means and lashed out at him with her blade, though a quick kick to the face rendered that useless, grabbing her and throwing her onto the ground with tremendous force. The sheer force of her slamming into the ground had flung her katana a meter away. "Moo, that hurt. Couldn't you have gone a little easier?" said Mayumi with a pout while rubbing her sore back, standing up and coming face to face with a grinning Naruto. "Are we done, sensei? I thought this was a test," voiced Naruto with frustration lacing his voice. "We're just getting started," exclaimed his sensei with a maniacal grin he and his fellow teammates had known well. Sweating now, Naruto took a defensive stance and awaited the oncoming attack. "Present time well, you three have definitely grown," huffed Mayumi proudly. Their teamwork had been beyond excellent. In the 3 years that they were her pupils, she had raised them from the ground up in their shinobi skills. While all of them except for Naruto, he was in a league of his own. She was sure he would become a force to be reckoned with in the future. If she was honest with herself, he was already a Jonin tier shinobi. They hadn't gone on any missions she deemed crazy. They'd only done 2 B-ranked missions, and that was without her interfering with anything. All of them were exceptionally well skilled. She was confident in all of their abilities. Yet sheer skill could only get you so far. For instance, an untested genin with incredible power couldn't match up to a jonin simply because they were strong. 9 times out of 10 the jonin would win from sheer experience alone. The only one with live combat experience was Naruto. Shortly after they had augmented him, that damned council wanted to see what the individuals they were pumping money into were capable of. After he had come back, she could tell he wasn't the same anymore. He spaced out more often, always deep in thought. Everyone else he spoke with couldn't see through the mask he had created. She was certain whatever he went through must have been hell. He was only 13 for Kami's sake. Sure, they mentally conditioned him for that lifestyle, but reading and being taught about war, then experiencing it are 2 different things. "Thanks, sensei," voiced Ken and Hisana, proud smiles on their faces. Both of them were taking deep breaths. That sparring session had taken a lot out of all of them. As the wind blew by, the two had realized Naruto hadn't said a thing and was just staring at the sky. "Naruto-sensei was congratulating us, you know." Even at this, Naruto didn't move a muscle. It was like he didn't hear any of them at all. Hisana had started reaching out with her sensory abilities. She could roughly tell how a person was feeling now. She felt lots of pain and sadness. It was horrible. She had no idea as to why he was feeling like that. "Sensei, Naruto, he's..." started Hisana with a worried expression on her face. "You two go on ahead, we'll catch up. Don't worry about a thing," she said as the wind had picked up around them. The rustling of leaves could be heard throughout the forest. "If you say so, sensei," said Ken as he gave a quick worried glance at Naruto. Naruto was usually pretty joyful most of the time. Ever since he was missing for an entire week months ago, he had changed a little bit. He had secluded himself most of the time now. While none of them had been able to visit their families, they had no idea if it was the same way for the other teams. Maybe that was what is wrong with him, just homesickness, summarized Ken. As the two had started to walk away, Mayumi just looked at Naruto with concerned eyes. Walking up to him, she placed her hand on his shoulder to get his attention. She felt him tense up almost immediately. He had calmly turned to her and she felt him loosen up when he came face to face with her. His eyes showed a deep sadness, though he still gave her a small grin. "Hey, sensei, where'd Hisana and Ken go?" voiced Naruto as he looked around trying to find the two in question. "They just left. Are you alright, Naruto?" Mayumi's voice full of concern, her eyes just staring at him. He may have been forced into the military, but he was still her student. A student she cared deeply about. Naruto just stared at her questioningly for a moment, contemplating how he would answer her question. Naruto sighed before deciding to respond to her inquiry. "I'll be fine, sensei. It's just considerably more different than I thought when I was a kid. I knew the life of a shinobi wouldn't be pretty, yet I still wanted to do it. Yet when you're on a battlefield, and you see what a man could do to another man, when you're the man committing the acts, it changes your output," voiced Naruto with varying emotions filling his voice, his face downcast as the wind continued to blow around them. "I'll be fine, sensei, I just need some time," Naruto finished, a wistful smile forming on his handsome face. Mayumi had listened to everything he said intently. Whatever kind of mission he went on must have been bad. The wind had died down, and as she was just about to respond to him, a shunshin had interrupted her. Naruto and Mayumi both had immediately adapted a face blank of emotion. If someone was coming to them, something big was going on. The individual who came out of the shunshin was a young man. He was a chunin, they could tell because of his vest. The man had cleared his throat before speaking in a clear tone. "Uzumaki-sama wishes for elite jonin Mayumi Uzumaki to report to him with haste." Finished the individual. "Understood, report back to him that I'll be on my way in just a moment," voiced Mayumi with a firm tone, her face devoid of any emotion. With this, the chunin gave a nod before he was gone in a shunshin. Turning to Naruto, she gave him a smile that conveyed to him that everything would be alright. "Well, go ahead and head back to our team quarters. I'll talk to Uzumaki-sama about something to help you out," Mayumi promised while smacking him on the back, still giving that radiant smile. Naruto blinked at his pretty sensei. Shrugging, he just couldn't help but return her smile. She was one of the few people he thought of as family. She was like an older sister sometimes, and a ruthless sensei when required. "If you say so, sensei, I'll suggest forget anything I said earlier. I'll be fine." Giving her a thumbs up and a confident smile, Mayumi gave him a questioning look, seemingly studying as to why he changed his mood so quickly. Shaking her head, she just returned a small smile. "We'll talk later, Naruto," she voiced with a no-nonsense tone, her eyes seemingly staring straight through him. Naruto just gave a nod. Both of them had gone through some hand seals before shunshining out of the training grounds. Konoha Hokage Tower, like Uzumaki, the Hokage Tower in Konoha, was also bustling with activity. People tending to the hawks that were used for communication from there to the front line in a megacure. Though in one of the rooms it sat 4 individuals, and now elders of the village. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage of the village, hidden in the leaves, was sat with his 3 advisors and teammates. They were all in their late 30s now, though in this shinobi life they were considered veterans, having fought in the first shinobi war alongside the 2nd Hokage. "Is it true that Kurigakure and Kumagakure are finally on the move, Hiruzen?" questioned Kouru, a contemplating look on her face. "Yes, it appears they finally mobilized their troops. The only thing standing between Konoha and them is Uzumaki," answered Hiruzen, deep in thought on the matter at hand as well. "We should rally some of our shinobi to reinforce our eastern front," voiced Tomura. "No, it would take too long to muster that many shinobi. Hiruzen, we must send a squad of elite shinobi to secure the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. Mito-sama age may start to affect the seal. We don't need a rampaging Biju while we're in this war," finally voiced Danzo, his lone eye closed and a calm look on his face. At this, Hiruzen, Kouru, and Homura all nodded in agreement. While all of them wanted to keep the village prosperous and its inhabitants well defended, Hiruzen and Danzo both wanted to make it the strongest nation, so none could oppose her. and with a younger Jinchuriki one they could indoctrinate with their values, surely Konoha would remain the strongest. We will send out Sakumo to take along with an elite team of Anbu to secure her. Uzumaki is our longtime ally. I will muster a force of shinobi to protect our eastern borders, and should anything happen to her, to possibly assist in any evacuations, commanded Hiruzen, looking unfazed at the matter at hand. Hiruzen Sarutobi may seem like a very kind man, though that was all deception. He was a shinobi through and through. Their sensei Tobirama Senju was probably one of the most ruthless shinobi to walk the face of the planet. The second Hokage was respected for his prowess, but he wasn't very well liked. Hiruzen as his successor saw that this ruthlessness didn't play well with some of the villagers. Though they didn't care, Hiruzen figured that perhaps a more polite approach would help his reputation. It did as well. Not only was he liked and well respected, the villagers wouldn't believe that he would commit cruel acts during times of war. When he did though, he just blamed it on Danzo, since he was viewed as a considerably more darker version of him. This Kushina Uzumaki that they had been informed of by Kenshin had the same chakra chains that Mito-sama had used to restrain the Kyuubi. They had to extract her, and he made her fall in love with one of the individuals of her generation to produce a child loyal to Konoha, while Hiruzen was deep in thought, as were the rest of them. Though Danzo was thinking very hard. If Kurigakure and Kumagakure entered the war, Konoha would be fighting a war on all fronts. Surrounded, no matter how strong they were, they would more than likely suffer even heavier casualties which would take years to recover from. Uzumaki is renowned across the elemental nations for both their Finjutsu and shinobi alike. Perhaps if Kumo and Kiri attacked Uzumaki, it would buy Konoha enough time to muster enough shinobi to be able to fight them off. And if Uzumaki lived up to its reputation, Kiri and Kumo both may lose a considerable amount of shinobi trying to get rid of them. Though if some of the Uzumaki clan were to survive and make it to Konoha, it would bolster her power even more thanks to their incredible Finjutsu and vitality. If a male and female Uzumaki were to survive, the better. A full-blooded Uzumaki child would be much better than a half-breed, Danzo summarized. Perhaps Hitake's team should rescue not only Kushina Uzumaki but a male Uzumaki as well. This would bolster our military strength if we have full-blooded Uzumaki loyal to Konoha, added Danzo, his lone eye staring at Hiruzen awaiting his response. At this, Hiruzen thought about it for a moment. It wasn't a bad idea. Surely he could manipulate them both to become extremely loyal to Konoha and produce extremely strong shinobi, bolstering Konoha's military strength even more. When Hitake arrives, I will tell him of this, though extracting Kushina Uzumaki takes priority no matter what. With this, we shall adjourn our meeting. Voiced the third Hokage with a tone of finality. Kouru, Homura and the third Hokage had left the room, leaving Danzo by himself. Danzo had made a signal and a masked shinobi had appeared beside him. It was an ANBU from his root division. You will give Kurigakure and Kumagakure this information regarding Uzumaki defenses, commanded Danzo to the masked shinobi, only receiving a nod from the shinobi before they were gone to do their given duty. Uzumaki appearing on a knee in front of the Uzumaki in his office was Mayumi. She had just been informed that she and Naruto would be his daughter's family guard. While she wasn't opposed to it, she was the one that brought up the idea that Naruto should be able to see his family. She had also tried finding out what mission Naruto had gone on. Even the Uzumaki himself looked disturbed at that. Is there anything else you require of me, Uzumaki-sama? Politely requested Mayumi, still on one knee. No, that will be all. Thank you, Mayumi-san. You may return to whatever I interrupted you from, responded Kenshin with a kind yet respectful tone. They were both from the Uzumaki clan. Mayumi was also one of his best Whirlpool ANBU operatives. By your leave, Uzumaki-sama, said Mayumi. With that, she shunned Shin to her team's quarters to tell Naruto the good news. Chapter 6 Afternoon, Uzumaki barracks. After a shower to remove the dirt and grime from his body, Naruto was sitting on his bed staring at his sensei. Mayumi had just told him of the new mission assigned to both of them by the Uzumaki, the protection of Akane Uzumaki and her daughters Kushina and Misaki. Naruto had numerous questions. Why would they need protection if they're in Uzumaki? Who did they need protection from? Those were some of the questions racking his brain. Pushing those thoughts aside and clenching his fists, it didn't matter who was after them or why they were. They were his family, and he wouldn't let anything happen to them. Mayumi had been studying her best student's expression. She could tell he was troubled with the objective of the mission. His family was always a touchy subject with him. When she had begun their training, thinking it was a good idea at the time, She and another sensei from the program had pitted their teams against each other to gauge their skills. One of the boys tried taking the locket he always kept around his neck. The vicious beating that resulted had rendered both of them insensible. "When do we begin?" His sudden voice broke her from reminiscing. His violet eyes staring at her, his tone sounded eager. He was probably happy he would be seeing them again after such a long time, regardless of the circumstances. "Well, we can go talk to them now if you wanted." She managed to get up before she was enveloped in a hug. Smiling, she returned his embrace. After a couple of seconds, Naruto took a step back and flushed in embarrassment. "Sorry about that, I didn't think you'd let me talk to them," he said while itching at the back of his head in embarrassment, his charming smile on his face. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go." She laughed out. This was one of the few times she could tell he was genuinely happy. They both left the room with Naruto leading the way. Naruto had to resist the urge to run all the way there. He was still worried though if the Uzumaki had assigned them a mission to defend them. Obviously, it meant he thought something or someone would try to harm them. Just the mere thought of anyone harming them was enough to incite his wrath. It didn't matter who they were if they were after the most important people in his life. He wouldn't hesitate to kill them. Pushing aside those dark thoughts, Naruto couldn't wait to see Kushina again. The last 3 years were hard since he wasn't allowed to see them. The letters they had been able to send each other and the locket he had gotten from Kushina had saved him from most of the heartache. He just couldn't wait to see Kushina again. Elsewhere in Uzumaki, Kane and Kushina's residence, Kane was humming to herself as she was making dinner for her family. It had been 3 years, and she still looked as gorgeous as ever. Her figure was one that would make most models jealous. Even at the age of 31 and after giving birth to 2 children, she still had a slim waist, little to no sag to her breasts, and the same was to be said about her plump rear. Her ruby-colored hair flowed over her shoulders reaching her mid-back. It was a testament to the Uzumaki vitality, though her daughter Kushina was already rivaling her beauty. In the years Naruto had been away, Kushina had thrown herself into training. Just like Naruto, she had grown as well. She would have been a clone of her mother except she got her father's rounded face, though that didn't take away from her beauty at all. The number of suitors she got was annoying. She's told them all countless times she was taken already. Some got the message while others she had taken it upon herself to beat the message into them. Her good looks weren't the only thing she got from her mother either. She was from the Uzumaki clan and it was widely known that women from that clan had a temper. She had used some of the suitors as training dummies to refine her taijutsu. They had gotten the message after the vicious beating a group of them had received after they finally got on her last nerve by insulting Naruto unknowingly. None of them had seen her with this so-called man she was supposedly in a relationship with, calling him condescending names. That was the last straw before she put them all in the hospital, though even after that some dedicated or obsessed guys still asked her to go out with them. "Kushina-chan, can you come here for a minute?" yelled Kane from the kitchen. Hearing her mother calling her name, Kushina set the scroll she was reading down. Standing at 5'4" Kushina was a young beauty, known by all the boys in her age group, not that she cared for any of them. With the grace that only a kunoichi could have, she made her way to the kitchen. "What's up, Ka-chan?" asked Kushina, coming into the kitchen with a cheerful tone. It made a Kane raise an eyebrow. Kushina was a pretty happy person, but she sounded like she just won a million ryo. "What's got you in such a good mood today?" prodded Kane with a smile. She was making salt ramen today, but she had forgotten to pick up some scallions when she was at the market this morning. "I dunno, woke up feeling this way, I guess. Anyways, what did you need?" replied Kushina with a shrug. Kushina walked up to the stove where the broth was simmering and inhaled deeply. "This smells great, ttbane," she finished with a grin. "I know it does. Can you go run by the market and see if you can get any scallions? I forgot to pick some up this morning," said Kane sheepishly. With a sigh, Kushina nodded her head and made her way outside after she slipped into her ninja sandals. The walk to the market wasn't too long, only about 5 minutes. Even in the afternoon, the market was still rather busy, though some of the better vendors had closed for the evening. She was making her way through the market where the vendors with vegetables and fruits were always at. She was almost there when she heard a feminine voice calling her name from behind her. "Kushina-chan, what are you doing here?" voiced her best friend Mayumi. They had each other in the same class when she was attending Uzumaki academy. "Oh, hey Mai-chan. My Ka-chan forgot to get some scallions this morning for ramen." said Kushina, now facing her best friend with a smile on her face. You wanna come over and hang out for the evening? She finished excitedly. Aren't you just chipper today? Finally got a boyfriend? Teased Mai with a smile. That earned Mai just a stone-cold look from Kushina. I'm just teasing, relax. Sure, I'll come over for a little bit. Finished Mai. Kushina just nodded and smiled back. She could never be mad at Mai for long. She was her only best friend besides Naruto. Alright, let's go find these scallions and make our way to my house ttbane, said Kushina in an upbeat tone, fist pumping into the air. Meanwhile, Mai was muttering something about Kushina being a freak for ramen. 15 minutes later, after the tedious search for the elusive scallions, Kushina and Mai were finally making their way to Kushina's house. The sun was just starting to set, casting a beautiful orange glow over Uzumaki. They had just gone over the bridge that leads to Kushina's district. You never told me why you're so happy today, said Mai in a cheerful voice and a thoughtful smile on her face. Kushina returned the smile before responding. You know, neither do I. I've just had this really good feeling all day long, said Kushina with an enthusiastic voice. Though both of their smiles dropped when they heard a boy's voice from behind them. It was one of Kushina's and Mai's admirers. Eiji was his name, thought Kushina, not that she cared. He was just in their class in the academy, he scored in the top 10 just like Mai and herself, so he thought he was worthy of them. Hey Kushina-chan, Mai-chan, what are you two beauties up to today? Questioned the now named Eiji. He put up his most charming smile. His family was pretty wealthy, both of his parents being very talented in their trades. Surely with that and his charming looks he could win over the youngest beauty of the Uzumaki clan or the beauty of their branch clan, the Terumas. Let's keep going before we continue talking, Mai-chan, said Kushina with an uncaring tone. Her smile was long gone. Ever since she met Naruto, she was not interested in any guy from her age group. Just the mere thought of being in a relationship besides friends with one appalled her. Don't be so cold, Kushina-chan. If we married, you could just live at my home in comfort for the rest of your life, said Eiji. He was unknowingly digging his own grave. Mai turned to him, giving him an all-too-sweet smile. When are you going to leave us alone, you idiot? We have our aspirations, and sitting at your home just to be some broodmare or a trophy wife isn't one of them, said Mai, her voice laced anger. Eiji was just about to respond when Kushina came to an abrupt stop. Eiji shut up because he thought she was about to give him the rough treatment that she was known for. Though he and Mai both were just curiously looking at who Kushina was staring at. At the front of her door was a very pretty woman. Her hair was scarlet red. She was a kunoichi from the Hittite around her neck. There was also a super handsome boy that she felt like she recognized almost instantly. Even from the 50 feet away she was able to see those violet eyes that she loved. Naruto! Naruto! She yelled out in the most cheerful voice Mai and Eiji had ever heard. She was full-on sprinting towards the duo, both of which were now turning in her direction. Naruto heard that sweet voice he had grown to love. Turning towards where he heard it, someone with that luscious, silk-like ruby red hair had run into him and was hugging the ever-loving daylights out of him. It didn't take him more than a second to return it and pick her up and swirl her around. She was crying tears of joy. Naruto had finally come back after the 3 long years. Both Naruto and she didn't know why he couldn't come back after his training. She had asked her Gigi multiple times only to be told it was complicated, but none of that mattered right now. What took you so long, you idiot? Said Kushina, her voice quivering from being so happy and crying. At that Naruto just smiled and hugged her even tighter. I had a job to do, began Naruto, then he took a step back to look at her. You've got an even prettier one now. Naruto teased her, his eyes full of mirth and the most charming smile on his face. Kushina was already blushing as soon as she recognized him, but then he had to go and say something like that. She could just feel her cheeks heating up even more. You look hot as hell, ttbane, said Kushina, whispering the last part to where only he could hear it. No, she wasn't the only one blushing, not that either of them noticed. Mai and Mayumi were just shocked at what they were both seeing. Mayumi because she's never seen Naruto be so affectionate towards anything or anyone, and it was the same for Mai as well. Hey, who do you think you are to touch Kushina-chan like that? Yelled out Eiji in a furious tone. I graduated in the top 5 of my class at the academy, so you better back off. He tried flashing his Hittite at Naruto to try to intimidate him. though the duo completely ignored him for the time, just staring at each other and enjoying the moment. Kushina's blush deepened when she realized at how muscular Naruto had become, not to mention she was practically being held by him. Naruto was blushing just as bad as her at this point, realizing that she too had grown in certain areas. Damn these hormones, were the consecutive thought of the duo. Kushina threw caution to the wind and delivered a quick kiss to Naruto's lips. It was just a simple kiss, yet Kushina felt her heartbeat even faster. The kiss had caught Naruto entirely by surprise. The orange glow the sun had been casting only highlighted her beauty even more. "I love you so much, it's crazy," Naruto said as one of his hands cupped her face, staring into her gorgeous violet blue eyes. His other he wrapped around her waist and pulled her into a hug, her sweet pea fragrance filling his nostrils as he buried his face into her hair. Kushina just wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her face into his chest. She felt so safe and secure, like nothing would ever happen to her in his arms. The sound of his heartbeat washed away any worry she had. She knew that Naruto would be the only one to make her feel this way. "You have no idea how much I love you too, Ttbane," whispered Kushina as she hugged him even tighter. She inhaled deeply. His natural peppermint scent smelled fantastic. They were so close together that he could smell the sweet pea fragrance that she naturally had. Naruto took the initiative this time and kissed Kushina once more. Time stood still for both of them, his lips brushing against her moist velvety soft lips shyly. Neither of them had any experience, so it was pretty awkward, but Naruto went along with it. Throwing caution to the wind, Naruto deepened the kiss, his lips massaging hers apart clumsily. When Kushina followed his lead, his heart soared. Kushina tasted like strawberries on his lips. During their kissing session, Kushina had put her hand over his chest and was gripping his shirt. Kushina had realized what they had just done. Her cheeks flushed as she tried to hide her face in his chest. After years of being away from each other, they were both so ecstatic to be together again. She wasn't the only one blushing either. Naruto himself had a difficult time hiding the red hue on his cheeks as well. "Psst, have you ever seen him like this?" whispered Mai to Mayumi, who was pretty shocked at what had just happened. They were both registered shinobi, so technically they were adults. "No, I haven't. Not in the 3 years I've known him," whispered Mayumi back. While Naruto wasn't cold to anyone, he never really tried to reach out either. He mainly just socialized with his team and her. The duo in question was completely focused on each other. Neither of them cared about anything at that moment except for each other. Kushina released the grip on his chest and just put her hand over his racing heart. She could feel his racing heart. She smiled to herself, knowing that she was the one responsible for it. As she was about to say something, the imbecile Agitsuchi just had to open his stupid mouth. Naruto was just looking at the other teen with a questioning look. He was pretty angry, Naruto summarized. He was too caught up with reuniting with Kushina to remember anything he said, looking down to Kushina, who was muttering to herself about stupid fanboys. "Who's this one of your friends?" Naruto teased Kushina. That earned him a half-hearted glare, which he laughed off. He glanced at the teen to measure him up. He wasn't anything impressive. His clothing made him look like he was a pampered brat. The Hittite on his head meant he was a registered shinobi though. "You bastard. I'm going to fight you to show Kushina-chan how much better I am than you," yelled Eiji, his eyes showing immense anger directed towards Naruto. Naruto narrowed his eyes at this boy. Naruto was sure he wasn't much older than him, though this idiot must be blind if he thought he could beat him. Sure, he didn't have his new Hittite on because he was in too much of a rush to get here to Kushina. So maybe he thought he was just some lucky bastard that had won Kushina's heart over. "No, he's just some boy in my class that has a crush on me." Kushina groaned out. "It was tiring having so many people hit on you, you bastard. Fight me here and now. Surely after I beat you, Kushina will come flocking to me since I'm better," voiced out Eiji arrogantly. Naruto just gave him a blank stare. "You're boring," said Naruto as he continued to stare at the boy. At this, Eiji charged at Naruto, intent on beating him to show off to Kushina that he would be a better provider for her. Some shinobi, a couple of words and he charges blindly in, completely ignorant of anything, thought Naruto as he just stared at the oncoming genin. Kushina was going to move to stop him until a firm hand on her shoulder from Naruto stopped her. She was about to say something to him when Naruto just smiled at her. It was like the smile told her not to worry about him. "Don't be too rough with him, Naruto. came the matured voice from Mayumi, who was unknown to Kushina at the moment. Naruto just gave her a quick nod before stepping away from Kushina as to not involve her in the ensuing fight. Giving Mayumi a quick nod, he focused on Eiji. Naruto just let his arms hang loosely by his side. He just wanted this to be over with so he could spend more time with Kushina and her family. Eiji intended on finishing this fight quickly. He scored at the top of his class along with Kushina and Mai. He thought himself to not be any pushover, and in a one-on-one fight with someone in his skill group maybe. Throwing a quick punch at this imbecile who kissed his Kushina, he intended to end it quickly and prove he was better. Naruto used his left hand as he batted away the jab with ease. Following up with this, he used his right hand. He just used the palm of his hand to hit him square in the chest. Not with enough strength to seriously hurt the idiot, though he said Kushina was his woman and that alone made Naruto angry. The impact from his palm knocked Eiji to the ground. He was now coughing up a storm. "Is that all?" Naruto taunted as the boy continued coughing on the ground. "You're pathetic, and if you ever call Kushina yours again, I'll make sure you regret it." His voice even and his breathing calm. Naruto let the threat hang in the air while he stared at the boy on the ground who was frozen in fear and pain. Turning to Kushina, who gawked at him, Kushina prided herself on her taijutsu. Yet she couldn't even see what happened to Eiji. He was throwing a punch at Naruto and all of a sudden he was on the ground coughing up his lungs. "Well, let's go inside. Oh, by the way, this is my sensei Mayumi Uzumaki. Sensei, this is Kushina and her friend, I'm assuming," Naruto said with a smile. "It's nice to meet you," said Kushina with a respectful tone while giving a light bow. "This is my best friend Maturumi." She gestured towards Mai, who was standing off towards the side. "It's nice to meet both of you," said Mai while giving both of them a smile. "Well, now that is taken care of, what are we going to do about this guy?" Naruto said as he gestured towards the boy on the ground. "He'll be fine, let's just go inside TTBANE. I'm sure Ka-chan is going to freak out when she sees you," said Kushina at Naruto's side. "If you say so." Naruto shrugged, he didn't care about him. With that, they all made their way inside. Inside, after shutting the door behind him, he looked around. The interior of the house hadn't changed all too much. He did see a new picture frame that was a group photo they all took 3 years ago. Hearing the door open and close along with the pitter-patter on the wood flooring, Akane knew Kushina was home and came into the hallway to scold her for taking so long for such a simple errand. That's when she came face to face with Kushina's friend, an older woman, and a rather handsome young teen if her guess was correct. Kushina never brings any boys home. Strange, were Akane's thoughts as she looked at them. "What took you so long, Kushina-chan? Also, who are our guests?" asked Akane as she looked at the two strangers. "It's only been 3 years, Akane Oba-san," said Naruto as he should dropped. "Surely you haven't gotten that old," finished Naruto teasingly. As soon as he finished saying that, he got smacked on the head with enough force to send him reeling. "Why, you ungrateful Naruto?" said Akane in a surprised tone. Age was a touchy subject for women, especially when they get older. With that said by Kami, yet he grown. He was a head taller than her, not to mention his physique. Most shinobi would kill for their body to be as lean and muscular as his. The one and only. "Oh, did you have to hit me so hard?" said a pouting Naruto, rubbing the sore spot on his head. "Don't act like a baby, I've hit you harder, I'm sure," said Mayumi as she lightly slapped Naruto on the back. Naruto pouted for a moment longer before laughing. Mayumi smiled at the scene. This was the happiest she's seen Naruto. Akane just stared at Naruto for a moment. Besides his obvious growth, he was still acted like he did when he was younger. She could tell that he was different. Kushina could probably tell as well, though her excitement and joy from being with him after so long probably blinded her a little. "I'm Akane Uzumaki, it's a pleasure to meet you. I assume you're Naruto's sensei?" Akane inquired, looking at Mayumi with a smile. "Thank you for taking care of him all these years," she continued, giving a bow of respect. "It's nice to finally meet you as well. Naruto spoke about his family a lot," Mayumi replied with a respectful tone. When Naruto spoke about his dreams all those years ago, he was just a boy who wanted to protect his family, while most shinobi wanted fame, or to be remembered by history. Akane gave Naruto a serene smile at that. She knew Naruto had a deep fear of losing his family. It's what drove him to join that damn program. She knew they had done a multitude of things to him. He was back though and relatively unharmed. She decided to drop it for now and just be happy that he was back. "Well, let's go have dinner now, I made plenty of ramen," chirped Akane. Kushina fist pumped into the air muttering something about the food of the gods. As everyone made their way into the dining room, Naruto just smiled. It felt fantastic to be home. I hope you all liked the video. And if you all want the next part of this video, please like the video and comment 3 hearts. Please subscribe to my channel so whenever I upload a video you will notify.